Hiten Shah is the co-founder of KISSmetrics, Quick Sprout, Crazy Egg, advisor to a bunch of companies, and all-around amazing dude. He also co-hosts a podcast with Steli Efti. He was on the Digital Agency Marketing podcast recently to talk about how to measure client happiness and make your clients more satisfied by creating a feedback loop. And today I want to talk about the 3 main takeaways from that conversation. Let's jump into it. The first thing he covered was a strategy for making sure clients are happy with the work that we do.
I make sure that there's weekly calls with the client. I make sure that even after the calls, if it's relevant for the model that I'm going after, I'll even send a survey every week to the clients, even, all of them after each call, and just be like, yo, let us know how we're doing, right? Where did we miss the mark? Where are we just killing it for you? Blah, blah, blah. Because what you're really trying to figure out is what's an early warning indicator. And ideally, you don't want to make that someone in account management's function. You actually want to make that something a lot more tangible than that. And what I've noticed is when services business do that with me, I end up getting a better service. So basically what you tell them is we're doing this because we want to make sure we're always held accountable for the work we're doing and we're aligned with you. Because at the end of the day, you're the one we're working for. So realizing that, knowing that, and then basically building your processes around that is really critical. And you can't improve or even understand where you're at without having a good feedback loop. So you got to create those. That would be the biggest piece of advice I'd give you, which is create a proper feedback loop. Make it even like a survey or something if you have to.
Next, he went through a series of blunt questions to ask to get feedback.
It has a lot to do with the question. I mean, I would just be more blunt and just say are you going to renew next month? What would cause you not to pay us next month? How are we doing around that? Right? And then make sure that in the beginning, especially, you understand what those sort of drivers are for every client you have, because there's patterns in that. And you should be able to create your reporting and your weekly calls all aligned around, getting them what they want. And more importantly, understanding where you might be missing the mark.
And then finally, we covered how to deal with negative feedback.
You just fix it. That's a great thing about negative feedback. It's usually so negative that you should be able to figure out how to fix it. Sometimes you can't recover a client, and in those cases, it's better to just cut them early before they say they're done. You can be done too. And that's what I see a lot of services businesses not really doing. You probably just need to look at exactly what the model looks like for you around the business itself, in terms of client comes in, you promise them something, and then basically your accountability on delivery for it. And what most people don't do is they don't actually think of that as a process. And they're just basically scrambling or have departments that they have their own, or areas of the business that have their own process. So I would usually, if I were evaluating your sort of services business, I would step back and say, okay, how do you just tell me soup to nuts how it all works? And then it'll become really obvious where your bottlenecks are and where you need to create more process. Look, nothing scales without process. And services businesses need to scale literally from the 3rd client on. Otherwise, it gets really difficult to figure out where your bottlenecks are and where you need to improve. So if you've got delivery issues, how do you figure out that what you're delivering your client is happy with?
To get this whole interview with Hiten Shah, check out the Digital Agency Marketing Podcast. There's a link in the description. You can also check it out on the iTunes Store or SoundCloud. If you like this type of video, please give it a like to encourage this type of content. Subscribe for more B2B sales training. And if you need marketing support for your digital agency, check out experiment27.com. Thanks.